Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Today we're going to talk to Dr. Rob Maguire, who's practicing his business as the fulfillment coach. And he talks a lot about that. But he's going to tell us about his journey into fee for service and his Georgetown experiences in dental school, which as a Syracuse guy, that's a problem for me. And he went in the Navy and he did his 3 years at Paris Island. And then he went back home and worked as an associate. Going to be a partner. And guess what? That didn't work out. Shocking. Hard to believe that story, I'm sure. Then he found out, bought his own practice, and practiced fee for service for the 28 years he had it. He's going to share some insights and some thoughts, and I think it'll prove very helpful, especially if you're in a situation where you might be considering leaving the position you're in or moving on to a different area. Just some of the mental exercises that you go through to get to that point and that realization that that's what you're looking for, I think will be very helpful. Again, Fee for Service Dentist Podcast brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. Kettenbach has a brand new restorative product, Visalis Fill and Visalis Flow. It's a light cured nano hybrid composite. It's highly filled, over 80%. Great polishability and very durable and strong. It's an ideal composite for your anterior and posterior needs. Great shade selection system called the Flex Shade, shade A1 through A4, and it has an opaque and a bleach shade. So reach out to Kettenbach. They have so much more than just this product. This is just one of the ones they're highlighting. They're a great company. They got great reps all over the country. Reach out, find someone in your area. Talk to Dan at 877-532-2123. Tell him you listen to the podcast. Whatever. Enjoy it. Prices are right and the materials are great. If you love the podcast, you like the podcast, click like, share it with your friends. If you don't like it, please tell me how we can improve it, what we can do. If you know somebody that would be a great guest, have them reach out. SonnySpera@gmail.com, SonnySpera@gmail.com is the easiest way to get me. You can reach out to me on my cell phone, 607-624-2962. Thanks for listening, folks. Hope you really enjoy it. Have a great day.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet, our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast, and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Today, our special guest, Dr. Robert Maguire. Let me give you a little bit of a background. He's a dentist who had a successful and thriving fee-for-service solo practice for 28 years in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. Sold it in 2018. He's a dentist from Georgetown University School of Dentistry, which, of course, being a Syracuse guy, conflict already, right? Just conflict already. We've already handled that offline. He has an MASCL, which is a Master's in Strategic Communication and Leadership from Seton Hall, another Big East school.
Another Big East school.
That's right. Navy veteran, 3 years as a dentist at Paris Island, South Carolina. That had to be super interesting. Past president, New Hampshire Dental Society, fellow in both International College of Dentists and American College of Dentists. Over the years, he's completed continuums at both the Pankey and the Dawson Academy. So this guy likes CE, right? This is going to be good. He's now a speaker, coach, and consultant, spoken across the country, ADA, Chicago Midwinter. His website is The Fulfillment Coach. He loves helping dentists and their teams find fulfillment, teaching them how to build great teams and how to communicate clearly and connect with the patients. How many times have you heard that? Our communication sucks. We have to improve it. And not just with patients, but amongst your team. Signature talked about He publishes and sends out a bi-weekly newsletter entitled Fulfillment Dash, a newsletter for dentists. He's been on multiple podcasts. He's published Dental Economics, Dentistry IQ, Pankogram, Dental Entrepreneur, Dr. Bicuspid, Oral Health, and The Profitable Dentist. Most recently, he has won a spotlight on speaking contest at the Speaking Consulting Network Summit held in Nashville. So please welcome Dr. Robert Maguire. How you doing?
I'm great, Sonny. Great to be with you.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Now, do you prefer Bob, Rob? What do you go by?
You can call me Rob.
Okay. I have cousins, right? My dad's brother is Bobby. And this is a funny story because speaking of the name Robert, right? So Bobby had a son. His son's Robert.
The future of fee-for-service dentistry is based in membership patients. If you need help starting your membership plan, or if your plan is too big for your team to manage, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com to set up your free membership growth solution demo with our team.
My cousin married Bob. Bob had a son, Robbie. Robbie has since had a son that they call him Rob. So it's like every variation of Robert is in our family, and every single one of them means a specific person. So that's why I asked. So welcome,
And
Rob.
same in my family. Thank you.
So, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a little town called Nashua, New Hampshire. Actually,
Nashua.
it was a little city
heard of it.
on the Massachusetts border.
Uh-huh.
It's got about not. It's a large city for New Hampshire. It's got about 90,000 people. And
Huge.
now I live in a little town of 6,000 on Lake Winnipesaukee in
I've
the
heard of
middle
that too.
in the middle of the state. Yes.
Wait, Lake Winnipesaukee. Was that where What About Bob was supposed to be? Was that the lake that was supposed to be on?
It was on a little pond near Winnipesaukee called Rust Pond, which is right across the street from where I live. How about that?
That's
Some good memory.
That's a funny movie.
You're dating yourself talking
I know.
about what
That's
about
okay.
Bob.
Hey man, Bill Murray movies. I'm in. I'm all in. You want to talk Bill Murray's? I'll go. Bill Murray for 300. Alex Trebek, please. I'm ready. So, so you grew up in a small town. What was your background? What was your family like? What kind of environment you grew up in?
So back in the day, Nashville was a mill town. So I was one of three. I had two sisters. I was the oldest. We lived in a 900 square foot house with one bathroom. My dad was a mill worker, and that's what he did. And so I knew early on that, I wanted to do more than work in a mill. And he was a hard worker. My family, God bless them, they lived within their means.
Mm-hmm.
They were great people. We had our family vacations camping together, and so I came from very modest means. Started working at 12 years old, Sonny. I had
Right.
a paper route. I
Right.
caddied at the country club. I did whatever I could to pay for my education.
But you learned, you hustled, you learned that was a
That's it.
norm. If you were going to do it, you had to do it.
I had to do it. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's a
And
great. That's a
and
great. You what?
I saw how they did it.
Oh,
It
okay.
was they did it. They made it work. And yet, despite coming from
Yeah.
slim monetary means, we had a great family, and we didn't know any different. But yeah, so I started working at a young age and loved it because I knew at age 12 that I wanted to be a dentist.
Really? Where did that come
I
from?
did.
What's the genesis of that thought?
So the genesis of that is it was my orthodontist. I had a severe class 2
Okay.
where my nickname was, Bucky the Beaver.
Bucky Beaver.
But this
Mhm.
this orthodontist, when you were with him, Sonny, it was something special. He made you feel like the most important person in the world, and he remembered stuff about you. It just wasn't like you were another person. He took you into his arms and That was it. I wanted to do what he did, care for people in a deep way, not only just fix their teeth,
Yeah.
but also care for them as individuals. So,
What
Dr.
was his secret?
Babineau, what was his secret?
What was his secret? Did he write notes? How did he keep track of all that? Did you ever find out?
I never did. I never did. But he
Curious.
was amazing. And he had a fee for service practice back in the 70s. But people loved him. People were drawn to him.
Right.
And back then, he wasn't the only show in town. You had choices, but if you wanted to go to the orthodontist,
Right.
he was he was it.
Yeah, he established his position, his brand, they would call it now, right?
Well, he did, and it was taking care of people. That
Hmm.
was his brand, and doing great work too. He
So,
taught it. He taught at Tufts. He just was involved in the community.
so what
Yeah.
age? What age were you having orthodontic treatment?
Oh my gosh. Well, the back in the day, everybody wore headgear. So
Yeah, so did
I
I.
think, I think, yeah.
I
So
wore
I think I
the
was
high head here.
the high head thing, the
Yeah,
high pull,
I didn't have the
the
neck. I
high,
had the high pull headgear. Yeah.
the
Yep.
high pull, baby. I think I was 10,
Okay.
and then, and then
So
of course
this ignited this spark.
it did. It really did.
That's awesome.
And then he was so proud of his work that he'd call me back year after year to take follow-up photos, and he followed my path. He
Yeah,
chastised me after my first semester at the University of New Hampshire undergrad
right.
because he asked me, "Do you want to go to dental school or do you want to drink beer? You tell me what you want to do." And
Wow. He's a
he
surrogate
set me
dad.
straight. He was like a dad,
Yeah, he stepped
but
right in
yeah,
there.
he
Now,
did. He did.
did he have a bunch of other folks that went into dentistry? I had to be. Had to have that kind of
He
impact.
he must have. What was interesting is he had 6 kids, but none of them
Not
none of
one of
them
them.
became none of them became dentists.
Here's my guess on that. He gave so much to his practice and his patients that his kids either didn't get that or were a little jealous of the fact that he had that impact and they weren't able to share that. My guess,
Yeah, I'm
right?
thinking you're probably guessing right.
Is when you're that good at that, right? And you can deeply move someone like yourself to move in that direction and then follow up, right? That's the thing. He didn't just give you
No,
a
no.
fish, right? He gave you a fish and pole. So,
He
he
he did.
followed up. That's
He
great.
was truly a mentor, Sonny. You know
Yeah.
those people who come into your life and they care about you and
Yeah.
they check in on you and they're able to get in your face when you
Hmm.
need them to get in your face, but
Yeah.
then also pat you on the back and
Hmm.
say, "Hey man, you're really doing a great job," and specifically tell him what you're doing. That was him. He was I would call him my spiritual mentor. I had
Okay.
other mentors that were like clinical mentors, guys and gals that I could go to and just brainstorm cases. We've all had those cases where we look at them and go, "Where do I begin?"
Yeah. What the
And
hell is this?
he that's right. And he was a more seasoned dentist, this one who helped me clinically.
Hmm.
And I could go to him anytime with my mounted study models,
Hmm.
and together we'd work through the case.
Whip
And he
mix
was a godsend.
articulator.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. I think might have been a dinar
A dinar, yeah,
articulator.
we had the whip mix. Yeah, that's what we used in dental school, but dinar is a little
Yeah,
more popular.
yeah.
So,
So he was a great guy. And then I had another mentor who helped me with the business side of things. And he was a dentist that I worked for as an associate early on. So
uh,
I sought out these individuals because I knew I stunk in certain areas and I needed help.
well,
And they were
if you have a rock star coaching team around you, right? You by osmosis, you should pick up something, and the
you know
more
that
that they
firsthand.
give and share, yeah, I mean, it's just it's you got to have Even growing up, if you think about it, kids, if they're around and their friends are kind of no-gooders, got a hard chance of getting anywhere. But if their friends are all on the up and up, they got the right kind of nurturing surrounding environment that they're going to lift each other up. It's like that's the right situation to get into. So let's
Yeah.
talk about. So you go to Georgetown from New Hampshire. Was it a struggle with the undergrad and the grades, or was Georgetown pretty straightforward?
Uh, no, in terms of, well, undergrad. So once I got squared away after that first semester,
Well,
I
after you
soared.
decided against beer, okay, fair enough.
Yes, yeah. Once I limited, let me say, the beer and did concentrated more on what I was there to do,
Hmm.
things got a lot better. And so dental school was great. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Did fine, and graduated in '84 with 150 other dentists. And
Good sized
I
class.
felt it was a great education. Yeah, loved it.
Now, do you have any thoughts of going into orthodontics? Speaking of the orthodontics,
So here's the thing. He had encouraged me to do that. Well, Sonny, at that point, I was tired and broke.
right?
I was
Yeah,
tired and broke.
real life gets in the way.
Right. And so then from Georgetown, I went to the Navy and was stationed at Paris Island, South Carolina, Marine
So
Corps boot camp.
did you do the Navy as part of the dental school experience or no?
So I signed up as a freshman
Okay,
in dental school. There were no scholarships at that
right.
time. However, it paid me time and grade so that when I graduated, I was at a pay level, but with 4 years under my belt.
So like officer training, did you do that like OIS training up in the Cape area?
Well, at officers training back at the time was in Newport, Rhode Island.
Newport, that's
Well,
where it
they
was.
were
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so they were so desperate for dentists that I had a 2 week crash course at Portsmouth Naval Hospital. And I am proud to say that the first person I saluted was a UPS driver. Well, I never lived that one down. But they wanted us, they needed us desperately. And it was still peacetime back in the '80s, back in Reagan days. Uh,
Right.
but there was still, we were processing 22,000 recruits a year. The thing about the Navy was I was able to develop my clinical skills. We had a rotation. You
Right.
did oral surgery, you did endo, you did it all at a pace that was comfortable for you. There was no pressure to produce. It was all about quality. In fact, our work was checked. They
Hmm.
checked our work to make sure that it was satisfactory. And we didn't feel bad about it because we looked at it as a learning opportunity. I'll never forget my first extraction. Tooth number 19. Sonny,
Uh-huh.
of course I broke a root tip off.
Where'd
And
you
of
do?
course I'm perspiring like mad. I'm
Hmm.
only out of dental school a few months. This technician who's with me, who was in the Navy for 15 years, he says, Doc, I got you covered. Dang, Sonny. He led me through that whole procedure. He showed me how to use that elevator. He showed
Hmm.
back then we didn't have luxators, so it was a little
Right. Hmm.
brutal with those. Remember those east-west elevators,
I
the
do.
ones with the handle?
Yeah, to
But
careful not to break the jaw. Yeah.
that's right. But he led me through that whole procedure. But what I learned from that was your team members have got a lot of knowledge. So tap them, ask them what
Right.
their opinions are. You'd be surprised at the answers that you get. And I did that over the years, and that was gold. I can't tell you how many great ideas they came up with about how we could schedule better or how we could do a procedure more efficiently. You
You
know,
have
when
to,
I'm setting these
but
instruments on the tray, you're reaching way over here. How
right.
about if I set it right here? Or how about yet if you let me hand it to you instead of you grabbing it?
But the doctor has to accept that and has to be comfortable enough in their own skin, have enough self-esteem to not view that as
As a
demeaning in
threat.
front of a patient or showing me up or making me small, whatever the case. Because we have that, like when we have an associate, we have a new associate going to join us as well, and they work with our entire staff. Now we're a pretty large office. We have 5 offices and 70 plus people. So there might be one assistant that I've worked with for 10 years. There might be one that's this amount of time. So they might be able to learn from me via the assistant if they allow it to happen. And how that conversation goes is so important, but it's you have to have the right, I'm going to call it temperament, probably not a fair word, but you have to have the right self-esteem, in my opinion, to understand that, hey, this person's here to help you.
Yeah. And I think ahead of time, which I found was key, is to kind of set the rules of the game, is that I'm open to feedback and I hope that you will be open to feedback as well. But what I
Right.
want us both to agree upon is that when we offer suggestions to one another, we'll do it in the back. We
Mm-hmm.
won't do it in front of a patient, but we'll
Right.
look at these moments as opportunities for learning. And it
Mm-hmm.
worked great. Oh yeah, we've had all those things. I'm sure you've had them as well, where a dental assistant might say to you, Dr. Maguire, do you really want to do that? Or something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we've all done it.
Yeah, learning opportunities. We should call them teachable moments, is
That's
what
it.
we would say. Yeah,
Teachable moments. Love that.
yeah. We use that a lot in coaching with basketball and stuff. Hey, that's a teachable moment for that kid. So use it, you
Yeah,
know.
that's it.
All right. So you're in it. How long are you at? You're at Paris Island for how long?
3 years.
3 years. Now, is
I
your
was
commitment over at that point?
it was. Yeah, and I knew that my career in the Navy would be 3 years and only 3 years.
Okay.
I realized early on that I have a big mouth,
Uh-huh.
and perhaps that might not flow well in the Navy. But here's the other thing. I did want to go back and reestablish roots in
Uh-huh.
New Hampshire and be part of a community. And
Right.
would I do it again in a heartbeat? I would. Some of my dearest friends today are my Navy friends,
Now, were you
and the
married,
experience.
kids, anything?
Say that again.
Like at the time, what was your personal situation? Were you married? Did you have kids? Did you relocate? What was that?
I was married. I got married in dental school actually
Yeah,
between
so
my
did I. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I married a childhood sweetheart. I met her in the first grade, and we were
Oh, she
just
knows you
best
pretty
friends.
well.
Well, we were best friends in high school. Went on one date, spent all day polishing up the baby blue Ford Torino station wagon, a real stud car,
There you
and
go.
it was a real total disaster. Then she went to Maryland. I went to University of New Hampshire. We wrote letters, and the rest was history. So we got married in dental school, had one kid in the Navy, and then had a daughter, and then later on we had two more daughters. So I have three daughters that are all grown. No
Okay.
grandkids yet. We're hoping.
All right. So you're newly married. You're a couple years married. You're in the Navy. You're at Paris Island. You have this child, and you knew it was 3 years. So your commitment, it was like a 3-year residency, we'll call it, right? So you finished. What was your path to now going private practice?
So my path at that point was I had joined up. I went back to Nashua, where I grew up, and I became an associate with my childhood dentist with
Okay.
the with the idea that I would eventually become a partner with him. He had a fee for service practice. He was well respected in the community. He did beautiful dentistry. And that's the type of person that I wanted to
Nashua?
join up in Nashua. Yes.
Okay. So you obviously
And
kept in touch with him then, as you were in the
I
Navy, I would
did.
assume, right?
I did.
Okay.
And he kept in touch with me too. Kind of
So,
my another
sure.
second father figure.
So how did it go when you went up?
We worked for 3 years, and the timing was never right um, to buy in. And I flew the coop, found this practice opportunity in the little town of Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and was there, practiced there for 28 years.
So I have to ask you, because I have
Yeah.
not exactly, but a similar moment, because you're in with, as you described, one of your key mentors, phenomenal dentist, not a bad word came out of your mouth in describing that. And I'm guessing that the partnership issue, which was discussed readily, was sort of put on the back burner. But I'm going to ask you, when and how did you come to the realization that A, this is not going to happen, and B, I got to have a second plan now? So take us through that moment.
The moment was when I sat down and said, I can't be an associate anymore. I really would like to be a partner and share in the responsibilities of this practice.
Did you have did you have talks that before that though, like here's how it's going to go? Was that a conversation, or did just life get in the way because you got busy with life?
We did, and the answer was the timing's just not right. How about if we talk again in a year? Well, then another year went by.
Right.
And Sonny, when you're our age,
Yeah.
we have a lot more wisdom than we did back when we were in our 20s.
Huh.
And as I look back, I probably should have pressed the issue a little bit more, but I didn't. But
Well,
I believe,
I find that sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, but I find that sometimes
sure,
the discipline of dealing with that business part, some dentists just don't want to deal with. So I'd much rather say, let's look at it in another year, because it takes a discipline outside of the office to say, let's sit down, let's really hammer this out. So as you're doing this once a year and it's getting put off and put off, where does your mind turn and finally say this isn't going to happen? I need to start exploring my other opportunities, because mine was a little bit different, but I do remember, and I remember struggling with it, but I knew that ultimately I wanted to steer my own ship. So what was your take us through that thought process?
yeah, well, that's it. I knew I wanted to be the captain of my own ship. But again, you hope, you're hoping that things will get better. You're hoping that the situation will take place as originally planned, as you originally thought. Now, here's the thing, Sonny. I'm back in my hometown.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
fam my, my
Yeah.
family lives there.
Your wife's family.
I have a restrictive covenant that will put me out of where I am.
Right.
So it took a lot of courage to realize that it's time to move on. And it probably was slower than it should have been, but everything worked out beautifully.
How old was your daughter at this point?
My daughter was 4.
Oh, 4. Okay. All right. Well,
Four,
that's not,
yes.
so they're not
Yeah.
really
But
she's
I
not
had
really enveloped in the
no,
school system.
but I had just bought a house
Right.
back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And of course, when it comes time to move,
Yeah.
you know what happened to real estate in the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah.
So here I am selling a house for less than I paid for it
Yeah.
3 years prior. But again, it's all lessons learned.
But you're
And
but you're
things,
but you're leaving the nest too, right? So you had to have some, and your wife had to have a lot of trepidations about, we're leaving what we know. We're going to something that we don't. Just address that because I know there's people in that are in in our shoes as they were then that are out there now listening, saying, "Oh yeah, I don't want to go uncomfortable."
yeah. Well, I'm going to say you need to get uncomfortable, but you need to get, if you have a spouse, you need to do it together.
Hmm.
So when this opportunity arose 70 miles from where I am now,
Yeah.
going to the country from a city,
Yeah.
first thing I did was I brought my wife up and said, "Hey, let's take a look at this. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Because if it was a no from her, then it was a no go.
Right.
And what we see in our rural town a lot is that, particularly on the physician side of things, they'll come to our town with their spouse, whether they're male or female, and the spouse is miserable. And so a
Right.
year later,
They're gone.
they're leaving. Yeah. So courage and just having faith that things are going to work out, and that's all I can tell you. It is a leap of faith.
Hmm.
And you know what? You've heard that expression, no risk, no return. You got to get uncomfortable. It's okay because
Right.
that's where you grow.
Right. Yeah, you grow outside your comfort zones where you grow. That's a good expression too. So
It's
do you want to share what the practice looked like when you got into it? What was it doing? What did it look like? What did you pay for it? I mean, talk a little bit
sure.
about that.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk numbers with you? I'll be
Yeah,
happy to.
absolutely. Whatever you're
Sure.
comfortable with.
So this was a solo private practice.
Let me
The
guess, three
individual
rooms.
had no 4 rooms,
Okay. All right. Okay.
two hygienists,
Oh wow.
one dental, two hygienists, one
Yeah.
dental assistant,
Yeah.
uh, one and a half individuals at the front desk. This was back in 1990.
Who was the house? Who was the half? His spouse?
No, no, it
Really?
wasn't. It was a part-time person. Now,
Okay.
mind
All right.
you, Sonny, back then we weren't computerized. No,
Right.
the computers were just starting to come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
weren't batching insurances. You were stuffing as many as you could in an envelope
Sure.
and hoping that you'd get by with one stamp.
Enough to get one stamp on it. Yeah, that's how I started in
Yeah,
1991.
yeah. Ledger cards. I
Yep.
mean, it was
Triple right
antiquated.
system. Yep.
So the practice back then was doing 365,000. This was
Yeah, about
in
30 a month. Yeah.
1990.
Yeah.
And I paid 165
Right.
for this practice.
Let me guess. Was that
Um,
about equal to his net?
it was equal to his net.
Yeah, that's what I bought for. Yeah. Same
It
thing. Mine was
was.
a little bit more. It was
Yeah.
440
And
and it was a 225 purchase. But yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
so right out of the chute, and accounts were receivable were a little on the high side.
Right. Right.
So I said, I will collect your accounts receivable for you. I'll take 10% to do that. And
Right.
then at the end of the month, I will write you a check for what I've
Yeah.
collected for you. Well, here's the thing. I didn't have to take out a business line of credit. I used that money to help then move forward. So it was a hamster wheel practice, Sonny.
Mm.
Single tooth, double
Yeah.
booked with one assistant. We
Yeah.
had a dark room. Imagine a dark room.
Yeah.
Although we did have this new instrument called a Peri Pro.
Pro. Yeah.
Whoa. You stick your hands in the
Put the
little
single
box
ones in there. Yeah.
and you peel
And
your
then you hope it doesn't
film,
get caught in the
and you hope
developer
it
to
doesn't
fix
get
it.
jammed up. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And you were doing everything in duplicates. Well, anyway, so it was a hamster wheel practice. Often there were two columns going.
Okay.
The one column was a single tooth restorative, and the other column was an extraction. So
Okay.
it was
Right.
it was a lot.
Now,
I knew I
was
was
he
going to die. And
retiring? Was he out?
he no, he moved. He relocated to his home, which was in Virginia.
Okay. How long was he in this practice?
So he had been there. So I bought the practice in 1990. The practice was started from scratch in 1976, and
Okay.
he had been there for 7 or 8 years. So not
So
that long. And he was
so
a
he bought the originator of the practices out, or what happened? Because it was started in
yeah, so he
'76.
bought it from the original, the
Okay.
founder of the practice.
Okay.
So I'm the third dentist to come in to the
Gotcha.
scene.
Okay. But now you also got to get into the community. It's a small town. You're a young family. Now, what avenue or what vehicle do you use? Is church or
Yes.
social clubs or service clubs? What did you do to get into the community so that you no longer were the outside?
Yeah, it was church. That
Okay.
was that was the first thing. And the second thing is if I could make a recommendation to younger dentists, is win them over, win your patients over. Don't go in there and just make major changes right out of the chute.
Mhm.
Go in there, introduce yourself, get to know them, and let it happen. So the fact that I was intentional about getting to know the patients, not making any major changes. Yeah, I wanted to change the decor and this and that, but just do it gradually. Get to know the people first. And then honestly, it was church and making sure that you did your shopping in town. So being out and about in the community. Now you meet people through school. So having kids, you're at their sports events. All my daughters were athletes. So you meet people at their sporting events. But I didn't get involved with Rotary Club or the Lions Club, all those things that were there, because honestly, in order for me to stay balanced, having your own private practice for me was a lot. And then I still had a family that I had to take care of as well. So it was basically church, and then taking care of your patients, and then being involved, being seen in the community.
So I mean, there's no question about it. I think that's to me. I mean, we practice in similar towns. You have to be a part of the fabric of the society of your community. It's
You
not, and you
do.
can't fake that. You can't. It has to be genuine and real, right?
It does.
So my story is similar. I went into the practice. Now I'm a local kid from, we'll say 6 towns over, which is a big deal in our area, but I didn't have that community much, they didn't know me that well, so what I did was I did change the decor a little bit. Like I put different drapes up and I changed some of the chairs in the reception area.
Yeah.
And I changed like some wallpaper and some coloring schemes, just a little bit, right? And didn't change anything else. And so, oh yeah, it just so it really was a little bit of a spruce up or a little bit of an update, so to speak, And it wasn't coming in and like all of a sudden now we have marble walls and waterfalls, and this is not going to be a Park Avenue practice, right? In the middle of this really small town, in the basement of a raised ranch, which was where we were. That's not what we did, but we did change the decorum a little bit to reflect a little more of the early 90s. So naturally, what are your colors? Your light rose, your light teal, light blue, like the color scheme now would be like, oh my God, that was the early 90s. But yeah, that's what it was. But it was a big change over what it had been. And it didn't cost very much, but it was enough to, show that, okay, we're going to modernize a little bit as people expect it. So how did the practice look? It was a fee for service practice, you said, right?
Back then, there weren't many PPOs.
Right.
So you would, back then it was, we'll take your insurance. When we receive the check from the insurance company, we'll
We'll
send
send you
you
the bill.
a bill
We'll send you the
for
bill.
your portion.
That's where the ledger card comes and comes. You just send a copy of the ledger card. So,
You
so
know how
yeah,
many
I've been that route.
statements I was
Yeah.
sending out in a
Yeah.
month right out of the chute?
I know. I
100,
know. I was.
120.
Yeah,
Like,
I
oh,
was not too different.
so,
So, what was your overall thoughts then? What are you going to do with this practice? What did you have in mind for the evolution of this practice as you saw it?
well, I learned that I didn't know what I didn't know, but I did know that if this continued, I was going to burn out, that I could not keep up with that pace, nor was it rewarding because they were scheduled so tight that you couldn't chat with anybody, and there was a lot of patch and fix because again, you're not spending time talking with patients about their treatment options, and with one dental assistant.
Sure.
Like, so, anyways, uh, having that mentor who did comprehensive dentistry, who did understand how important it is to establish a relationship first with your patient and communicate. He was the one who set me on track. And that's when then I got involved with the Pankey Institute and the Dawson Academy. Now, Sonny, here's the thing. You talk about another leap of faith. Back then, it was it wasn't cheap to go to the Pankey Institute for a
Well,
week.
still
Now
not
it's
cheap.
less,
Yeah,
but
still not
the
cheap. Yeah.
benefit was a life-changing benefit. And so that's where I got the um, vision of how I wanted to practice.
Hmm.
And the first step, so as I look back, all right, so what was the first major change that you did to help you get on the road to more comprehensive dentistry or fee for service dentistry?
Hmm.
It was a new patient exam. That patients were no longer coming in through the hygiene department, that I was going to spend time with patients first, getting to know them. I thought I was going to have a rebellion on my hands. They're going, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Our production will tank. I'm going, we need to do this. And
Slow
here's
down to
the other,
speed
so
up.
then
Yeah.
slow, exactly. And I said, and we're going to be changing our how we collect money, that patients will be paying their copay when they come in. We will still accept assignment.
Right.
Now, back then, as I said, there were no PPOs. Here is the real where you drew the line in the sand in 2014. So back then, Delta Dental was the big player.
Sure.
And back then there was the premier program. If you remember, you submit your fees to them. If you fall within the 90th percentile, well, then you're good to go. Well, then in 2014, they introduced the PPO plan.
Hmm.
And I drew the line in the sand and said, no, we're not going to do this. And and of course, the whole team goes,
Hmm.
I'm like, it's going to be all right. We've got to do this. If we want to provide quality care for our patients, then we need to do this because the lower fees will prohibit us from providing the quality of care that our patients deserve.
Hmm.
Anyways, that year my practice grew, but
Sure.
they were so scared. Now, here's the other thing. I had a colleague who I had been chatting with who said, "Yeah, I'm just gonna drop them." I'm like, "Okay." This dentist had a mass exodus out of their practice. Well, why did I thrive and the other dentist's practice had the door open and people exit.
Dive. You're thrived. He's dived. Okay.
And I thrived, he dived,
Yeah.
and consequently had to go back to
Mhm.
Delta, the PPO program. Do you know what the difference was?
Communication.
We had relationships with our patients. They were coming to us because of who we were and what we were about. Not, it wasn't a head count type of thing. Now, at that point, Sonny, I had heard that I was the most expensive dentist in town. That was my claim to fame. And I did that. That's how the total fee for service came about. But what we had done is we had set the groundwork ahead of time, is
Mhm.
realizing that fee for service dentistry, it's about being clear about who you are and what you're about. Why do you
Mhm.
want to be fee for service? Well, for me, it's all about relationships and it's all about providing the best care for your patients.
Mhm.
That was it. And here's another one of my favorite expressions. Here's a thing that bugs me sometimes is, and I'm guilty, obsession over practice numbers. Oh, Sonny, in my early days, I was obsessed over numbers. I was obsessed over broken appointments. Not
Mhm.
only did I drive myself nuts, I drove my team nuts. Well, here's the thing. Once I got my eyes off of that and started focusing on the geese that laid the golden eggs, which are my team members and my patients, I didn't have to chase it. It chased me.
Mhm.
Well, isn't, as Rich Green at the Pankey Institute would say, isn't that interesting? So
Well,
getting your,
let me ask you about the numbers since you mentioned it, right? So
yeah,
you went into the practice. It was doing, you said it was about 335, right?
yeah,
When you bought it. Do you
yeah.
remember what happened to those numbers as you were doing your thing? And at what point did you have this epiphany?
Uh, I can tell you that I had steady Eddie growth
Right.
for my whole practice. It was 5%, an average of 5% growth every year. Sometimes
Hmm.
it was more,
Hmm.
but it was that steady
Sure.
upward trend.
But when
And
you make this change, you had to see a little more
I did.
accelerated growth because
I did.
it's almost like you're not paying attention to the numbers, yet the numbers are taking care of themselves. I have always told all my docs, take care of the patients, and those things take care of themselves. And
They
I know it's
do.
a simplistic form, especially as the owner of this entity, this beast sometimes. And
Yeah.
you can't lose sight of that. You just can't. Like no matter
No.
what, go back to that's your mom in the chair, that's your sister in the chair. What would you do? Like
That's
it's
it. And there's a market for this in terms of really providing, really caring for people.
mhm.
It's and it's fun. Would you rather see two patients in the morning or do you want to see eight or 10? You choose. But what it takes is taking the time to connect with that patient, find out what their needs are, their desires, and then dovetail it together.
Mhm.
And again, slowing down to speeding up. But hey, here's another thing that I think will benefit the young listeners. I used to go in, so mind you, I'm doing the new patient exam, right? So I'm doing the co-discovery where I'm involving the
Yeah.
patient. Were you aware of this loose tooth over here? Or do you think you grind your teeth? Oh, no, I don't grind my teeth. Well, involving them in the process. So, anyways, so then I would have a separate consultation visit and I'd go in there with my polished study models and I'm so
Mhm.
proud and I'm going to just waterboard them with all this information. Some of them like it, some of them didn't. But I was so intent on having them say yes to my treatment plans. Guess what? A lot of times they said no.
Hmm.
Well, once I got rid of that thought process of I want to connect with my patients and I want to present treatment to them that's a fit for them and ask them ahead of time, hey, listen, I've got a lot of information to share with you. Would you like the details or just the bottom line? What would you like? And a lot of times they say, hey, doc, just hit me with the bottom line. So knowing how to connect with them and releasing yourself from any expectation of what they will say. If they said yes, if they said no, if they said some, none, it didn't matter. It was going to be okay. Guess what? Once I got rid of that need, my need to have them say yes to my treatment plan that I had so carefully planned out, how dare you say no to me? Once I got rid of that stinking thinking, all of a sudden they're saying yes to my treatment recommendations because I had spent time with them, caring for them ahead of time, and
Hmm.
what I was saying to them made sense. Now, here's the other thing: we had things in place. We we had outside financing in place to help them out.
Hmm.
Back then, we didn't have membership plans, but or a smile plan like you have in your practice.
Hmm.
But if we did back then, you betcha I would have been on board with that. Anything that I could do to help patients
Hmm.
get the care that they needed and deserved.
Now,
So
what did your team look like? When did you add a second assistant, and when did you add a second? What did your team look like as you started to do this? Did you change?
yes, I did. And I changed early on. Two, two, two.
Yeah.
Two dental assistants, two dental hygienists, and two front desk administrators.
And how many was it?
So
4 day a week? Or how many days were you working?
4 day a week. I worked Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4. I had a 50 consistently had a 50 to 52% overhead.
Okay,
Uh
which
I
is kind of where the other one was, right? Was in that neighborhood, right?
Yeah, the other one was doing okay. Here's the thing is money is one aspect of your private practice. It's fulfillment that I'm all about. Is are
Hmm.
you getting juice out of your job? Are you
Hmm.
Can I share with you how I define fulfillment?
Please do.
It's doing the dentistry you love with a team you love and with patients you love.
Hmm.
If you're able to do that, you're you're feeling it's that level of significance. It's that Maslow's hierarchy. It's the
Yeah,
top of the
self-actualization.
it's self-actualization. That's
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
But
Not
it
many
takes
people get to
courage.
that. Yeah,
Huh?
not many people get to that. They get usually, I think, that level just below that is where a lot of folks get.
You know what, Sonny? It takes time to really sit down and say what matters most to me or how can I make a difference in the lives of others. But as you said, it's a self-esteem thing. It's a feeling of worthiness. It's
Like how much reflection did you do in yourself? Because I think people miss this self-reflection, and it had to start more deeply when you were moving and going in on your own, right? And getting to that point of what do I really want in my practice? Like you had to come up with the thought, I want to own, I want to drive my own ship. Okay. Yeah, that takes a lot of self-reflection, and you have to really come to grips and come get comfortable with that. What kind of things did you do there that helped propel you later?
I thought back to my mentor, Dr. Babineau,
Hmm.
and how he practiced and that he owned his own private practice.
Hmm.
and the smile that he always had on his face. I thought about my associateship with the dentist that I was privileged to work with,
Hmm.
and how his patients loved him, and how he was the captain of his ship.
Hmm.
And that's what I wanted, because I felt as an associate. So I had two experiences private. I was in the Navy. I
Hmm.
was told what to do, and I was an associate, and I had no really say in terms of changes that I wanted
Hmm.
to make. And so those wanting to be able to have the freedom to do those things,
Hmm.
the only way I knew I could do that was to own my own practice.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't think enough people give enough thought of it. Like they read something on Facebook and they say, "Well, I should own my own practice." You know, like there was someone posted something the other day and it was like, I'm working 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I'm making, let's say 300, $400,000. I get to do what I want. I get to use materials I want. I enjoy it. I'm loving it. But should I be owning a practice? And it was almost like, well, listen to the first half of your statement. It sounds like you found happiness and success. Don't let someone else define it for you. You
Well,
know?
that's it. That's right. And I'm sharing my private practice view. The bottom line is, are you happy in your situation? Are
Yeah.
you coming out at the end of the day? Are you coming out energized? Do you have enough left for your family? That happiness piece is key. And for some people, that me as being whatever situation you're in, whether it's working for corporate or as an
Hmm.
associate, if
Hmm.
you are content and happy, then
There's a lot of
that's
different
important.
definitions of happiness. I mean,
There is and it's all personal, isn't it?
100%. And I just don't think enough
Yeah.
people spend enough time on themselves to understand what fills their own bucket, right?
And because and here's it's busyness. I just wrote a newsletter article on busyness, on
Hmm.
how I had spoken to other colleagues and said, "How are you doing?" They go, "Oh, I'm so busy."
Yeah.
But did they say it with a smile on their face? A lot of them didn't. And
Right.
it's because you don't stop and take time to say, "Okay, what floats my what floats my boat?"
Yeah.
You
What
just
do
get
I need?
wrapped up in or spend some time in thought rather than on Facebook.
Hmm.
I don't want to slam social media, but
No, no, but
come on.
let's take that out of it. What if it's just your friends at the country club or your friends at your church, your other professional colleagues? Oh, they drive a nicer car, or they have this, or they must be doing something right, or the appearances, or keeping up with the Joneses, or fear of missing out. Pick your poison, right? It has to come from self-awareness, self-esteem. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. I make plenty of money, but I don't need to drive X. I am happy driving Y. Period. I can live here. I choose to live here. I'm happy. Like that's me. But there's so many people that see that grass on the other side of the fence and they want it, but do they really want it? And do they really need it? It's a question that only each person can answer. And
Yeah.
I find that sorely lacking, especially someone who puts a post out there and wants advice. Like immediately, like tell me what to do. Like, are you kidding me? You're giving me three sentences and this is, you can have a conversation and maybe at that point you'll understand yourself better. Like I had a conversation last night with a fellow I interviewed a while back in Texas, and he's looking at a practice where he's working. The doctor's is going to pass away shortly. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And then as we were talking about his main office, and he goes, geez, I didn't expect us to talk more about this. I said, well, it sounds like this is, you're the lead in this conversation. I'm just bouncing ideas off of. I'm just here to, so your sounding board and get you some clarity maybe, but you got to do what you think. But you can make any of these situations work, but what do you want it to be for you? Yeah. It's key. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet a question like that catches them off guard.
Yeah, it's just I think people want Nintendo answers. Click here, you get this.
A
Pull the lever,
Nintendo answer. I
right?
love
Pull
that.
the lever, get the answer, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like the chimpanzee or the mouse in the experiment. Pull the lever, get the piece of cheese. Like so that we want that immediate. Hit that clicker, go there. Lights going. I'm done. I got my answer in 5 seconds. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. No.
Not anything.
And then the whole no, and it's just focus on your own journey.
Yeah.
Because I call it the comparison pit.
Yeah.
I think too much time we contend, and I'm just as guilty as other people, is you can get out of that circle of your circle of control, your circle of joy, and then step out into that area that you have no control over. Well, how does that make you feel?
Yeah.
Just work on do you.
Yeah. Just do you.
As you said, what floats your boat?
Yeah.
And what gives you juice? To me, that's what it's all about. And for me, it's not driving honestly, Sonny, I drive a 2000. I'm going to confess right now to you. I drive a 2013.
Wait. Let me put my collar on. Let me put my white collar on.
Yeah, there you go. Father Spera.
Father Spera, just like my cousin Jimmy. Go ahead.
Yeah, cousin Jimmy. I drive a 2013 Nissan Frontier truck.
There you go.
I love my truck. Why don't you get a new truck? I love my truck. I love the smell. I love to be able to take it to the dump and put stuff in it and not worry about whether I'm going to get a scratch or whatever. I love my truck. Anyways.
You got to have that bumper sticker in the back. I love my truck.
I love my truck. Don't I sound like
you sound like Toby Keith is what you sound like.
Yeah, a country boy from
Luke Combs.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, Luke Bryan, all good. Well, listen,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, Rob. And I do want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
And I asked most everybody this the first time on. So if you had the ability to go anywhere, anytime, any place backwards and spend it doing whatever you want or seeing whoever you want or talking to whoever you want, like where would you go and why? First thought.
A good question.
Yeah.
First thought. I think I've Irish roots. So I think I'd like to go to Ireland and learn more about my ancestors who came over through Ellis Island and with nothing but the shirt on their backs to maybe discover how they lived and where they were from. So I think that's the answer that I would.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you spend too much time thinking about it, you overthink it. Just click. Like, what's first thought? Like talking with Richard. He's a big music lover, and he thought his thing was his 60th birthday, seeing Paul McCartney in Liverpool playing on his birthday with his brother.
Oh, that would be cool, huh?
Perfect. It's what means it to you. So it's all good. And again, guess what? There's no wrong answers.
No. Sonny, this was a blast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And if they want to reach you, I'm going to put your stuff up on the show notes. If anybody wants to reach out to Dr. Maguire, you can reach out to him. Again, his website is The Fulfillment Coach, and you can reach him. But I'll put his contact and information in the show notes. So appreciate you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.